why the Democrat Party elites would only offer her a minute, just one single minute, un minuto. I'm just trying to channel her. Because in that 1 minute, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez undid everything the Democrats have been working on over the last few weeks, the last few nights, all the unity that they've been trying to display about how it's them against Donald Trump. This woman dared to go off script. In fact, she nominated the other guy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the big show, Trish Intel. I am Trish Regan. I'm here to help you cut through all the political noise so that you can make the best decisions for your money. Now, AOC stepping out of line there, making her message an economic one when the party line was supposed to be just one thing and one thing only. We hate Trump, right? The fractures, they're already starting to emerge. This is the political elite effectively from both parties that we are seeing. John Kasich, Colin Powell, other key Republicans switching sides, establishment elites against the rest of America, including perhaps the AOC Bernie crowd. I mean, this was actually kind of funny last night. I'm sure the Dems were furious, the bigwigs in the party anyway, when she actually nominated the other guy, the one that they tried so badly to keep down, the one that they twice forced to the sidelines, twice. I'm talking about Comrade Bernie. Listen to this.
En el espíritu del pueblo and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
You know, I got to give her credit. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had the entire establishment needing her and wanting her to give a big thumbs up for Joe and Kamala. And instead, she effectively gave them all the middle finger. To me, that was the highlight of the night. All that said, in all seriousness, while I appreciate the chutzpah, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her disciples, if you would, they have no sense of economic reality. In fact, listening to her, it hit me. It hit me that she's like the reincarnation of Hugo Chavez. I mean, she's better looking. She's a woman. She's younger. But you know, there's some very similar themes in terms of their thinking and in terms of their playbook that I believe we should all find very concerning. Because you know what? The Democrats are out there pretending to push her to the sidelines, right? Just giving her the 60 seconds. But the truth is they need her and they need Bernie and they need the squad. And while they're sort of kind of keeping them off in the corner, the truth is these people are the real fabric of the Democrat Party right now. These are the extremists that want to take money from you when you work hard, when you save, when you earn, and give it away to those who don't, because in their view, that is just.
A movement striving to recognize and repair the wounds of racial injustice, colonization, misogyny, and homophobia, and to propose and build reimagined systems of immigration and foreign policy that turn away from the violence and xenophobia of our past. A movement that realizes the unsustainable brutality of an economy that rewards explosive inequalities of wealth for the few at the expense of long-term stability for the many.
You know, I remember watching Hugo Chavez speak. I actually have an article on this in my brand new edition of American Consequences, and I'll share the link with you. He, too, talked about the injustice of imperialism and colonization. It's really, I mean, this rhetoric is right out of the Cuban Venezuelan socialist playbook. They push this idea of a socialist utopia that gives them more power at the expense of everyone else. You know, this is the Democrat Party today. Instead of wanting to create fairness and enable a meritocracy, they want to destroy what's left of our economy and kill, frankly, the American dream for future generations. That is what the consequences of their policies would be. It's dangerous. And even though the Democratic Party was sort of trying to hide it, you know, giving her just the 60 seconds, the truth is she and the squad and Bernie, they're the heart of the party. They are. And this is a challenge that we're going to face as a country right now. Don't forget, Joe Biden himself has been out there promising free this, free that, free college, free healthcare, free childcare. Meanwhile, his nominee for vice president, Kamala Harris, has been trying to push a bill through the Senate, with, by the way, Comrade Bernie is their co-sponsor nonetheless, a proposal that would provide $2,000 a month in basic income tied to coronavirus indefinitely. Indefinitely. She wants it to just go on and on until, we've wiped out COVID-19. We can't afford this. That's the reality. I don't have a problem in the here and now. I think you need to do what you need to do for Americans that are really struggling. Government is a kind of safety net. But if we just have this indefinitely, basic income, $2,000 a month, my goodness, this really is socialism, right? These people are trying to buy votes. And buying votes will force our great economy, which, by the way, is still the envy of the world, into a position of weakness. So AOC stole the show. But let's face it, this is a party that's struggling. For goodness sakes, on the 100-year anniversary of the women's suffrage movement, in the midst of this whole Me Too thing, who do they trot out? None other than a guy who really apparently likes women, Bill Clinton. Can someone just get these folks a producer, please? Or how about a calendar? Maybe just a calendar. Could you have tried to put them later in the week or on another day rather than on the exact same day? The president decided to pardon Susan B. Anthony for illegally voting in Rochester, New York in 1872. Thank you, President Trump, for that one. And thank you, Susan B. Anthony, for taking that risk back in 1872. That said, I will give the former president, President Clinton, credit for this. He gets what his party does not. He gets, or at least he pretends to get, because he's a very good speaker, that it is about the middle class, right? We need a strong middle class if we're going to have a strong country. And he's one of the few speakers out there that really talks about this right now. Because you know what? It is the economy, stupid, right?
Joe Biden wants to build an economy far better suited to our changing world. Better for young people. Better for families working and raising their kids. Better for people who lost jobs and need new ones. Better for farmers tired of being collateral damage in trade wars. Better for workers caring for the sick, elderly, and people with disabilities.
If I were the Democrats, I'd be laser focused on policies that I believed could help the middle class. I'd stop with this identity politics, because the truth is, economic struggles really don't have any identity. They're felt by all Americans, and all Americans need solutions right now, but they don't have any. They only have variations on this Venezuela, Cuba style nonsense and, Comrade Bernie's utopian Soviet dream. So, they keep going back to the well over and over and over again. And this is what you're going to hear. And I don't think it's enough. It's fine for the base, but it's not enough for America. Their message is Trump is bad, Biden is good. It's like it's a religion right now. Don't ask questions. If you dare to ask questions, you might just be excommunicated. They want you to believe whatever it is that they feed you.
Our party is united in offering you a very different choice. A go-to-work president, a down-to-earth, get-the-job-done guy, a man with a mission to take responsibility, not shift the blame, concentrate, not distract, unite, not divide.
I'll tell you, they got to come up with a new shtick, because mark my words, the economy is getting better and Americans are going to vote their wallets. So the Democrats can make people feel bad all they want, but a lot of Americans care deeply about their economic prospects. And they don't want an administration that could potentially tank our economy and tank our markets. That's the real story. Coming up, everyone, China is trying to buy up American companies. The Trump administration has been standing in the way. But what happens if a new president comes in, takes over, allows China to continue on its path? Here at Trish Intel, we have been doing a lot of research into China's efforts, and it is critical you know and you find out what's really going on. I'm all over it next. Countries around the world are taking up large ownership stakes in American companies right now, buying up equity shares at record rates. Increasingly, this is a problem that could come with a lot of serious consequences for our national security as we watch this Cold War with China grow hot. We've got a story coming to you on my brand new website, trishintel.com. Make sure you check that out. And it's edited by me and written by a dear friend of mine, Neil Grossman, who's absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's a former physicist, economist, lawyer, mathematician, hedge fund investor, central banker, just your average genius, right? Who spent years trading global securities, and he worked for the central bank in Norway. And he's really worried about this issue. And he's really worried because he says, you know what? If you got countries like China buying up massive stakes in American manufacturing companies here, then guess what? They're going to have an undue amount of influence on American industry. And we need to be careful about that. Now, just so you understand the context of all this, governments do this, right? They buy up assets in foreign countries, typically really safe assets because they're trying to manage their country's national savings. And so they buy gold and they buy government debt instruments. Think about China's investment in U.S. Treasury bills, right? Well, in recent years, that's sort of changed. Governments, either directly or indirectly, are suddenly becoming bigger and bigger players in all capital markets, right? Investing in like everything, all asset classes, which means it's no longer just this relatively simple investment in a country's debt, sovereign debt, but rather a foreign entity's investment in the equity value of corporations. They are taking ownership stakes in American companies. And this carries with it all kinds of conflicts that the Trump administration has increasingly addressed through its Committee on Foreign Investment, despite a stock market and despite an investment banking community that often prefers to ignore long-term issues in favor of near-term cash. I mean, just consider some of the biggest players around the globe right now. They're all looking for a piece of American action. You get the Central Bank of Norway, for whom the author of this piece once worked. It manages Norway's sovereign wealth fund. It's got about $1 trillion. You know what? I don't have a problem with Norway. I really don't. Norway can invest in the U.S. I don't have a big problem with that. Japan's central bank, they have a big stake in U.S. domestic companies, despite the fact that Japan recently revised its own laws to limit foreign direct investment within its own borders. You know why? China. Concerns about national security tied to China. Singapore has got a big fund. You get the Saudis, the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, all kinds of cash there because they had that big sale of the stake in Saudi Aramco. And so it's investing heavily in the U.S., but the Saudis have been an ally. So you think about these countries and none of them concern me in the same way as China. China, which has the most money currently to invest and wants to. The China Investment Corporation, it's called the CIC, is China's investment vehicle. And they've got $1 trillion in assets under management. Really, this is a powerhouse, and it's rivaled only by Norway's fund. As of 2018, U.S. stocks, U.S. equities, they made up about half of its holdings. In a political year, think about it, with Americans poised to decide whether or not to re-elect President Trump or send Vice President Biden to the Oval Office. Biden, whose son has reportedly had some challenging or questionable, I should say, financial dealings with China, according to some reports. You got to understand here China's investment ambitions and the candidates' relationships with China, right? Because that needs to be part of a voter's decision. China has yet to prove itself as a friend to American business. It's anything but. The country has repeatedly violated trade agreements by engaging in corporate espionage and by stealing or requiring a forced transfer of American intellectual property. Increasingly, China is under fire for not containing the coronavirus in its early days, and yet it wants to own a larger part of American manufacturing and gain the technology know-how that would come with that. So roughly 2 years ago, the CIC, the Chinese Investment Corporation, entered a joint venture with the American banking titan Goldman Sachs, great firm, I used to work there, in an attempt there to increase its investment exposure to the U.S. manufacturing sector. Indeed, the China-U.S. Industrial Corporation Fund is what it's called, was one of the first deals that was announced by President Trump when he visited Beijing in November 2017. And it is said that the Chinese had really hoped that this partnership with this prestigious U.S. investment bank would minimize its chances at deals being blocked. So far, no cigar on that one. Indeed, what did you see? Within a year of that partnership, China was complaining that CFIUS was unfairly blocking deals. I'm not surprised. You know what? I'm not surprised. I'd argue we ought to be blocking more, not just from China, but any country we consider that we consider a threat if it is trying to use its influence in ways that will not help us. I mean, after all, why are we allowing countries we consider antagonists or not friends of ours to buy up our manufacturing companies, our tech companies, our drug companies, or any other companies for that matter, right? The power of the purse, as they say, is quite real. You know, sovereign investing funds with their big dollar signs and their big investments, they can have influence that's not quite right, because they can influence board appointments, C-suite appointments, corporate policies, corporate decisions, even where and how all that money a corporation has is deployed. So if they're out there pulling those levers, then that enables them to have a lot of political and economic influence. And do we really want that? I don't think so. Right? So this is an issue that we need to be focused on. We cannot have American corporations being bought up by players that are not friends of ours. You know, enough of that. American corporations should be for American investors and for the real friends and allies of the United States of America. Coming up next, our home really is our sanctuary. We know that now more than ever, and that is good news for some retailers. I'm going to explain. I love seeing headlines like this. Lowe's online quarterly sales surge. Target posts record growth as pandemic fuels e-commerce. Home Depot sales jumped 25% compared to same time last year, while Walmart grows more than 9% with e-commerce revenue nearly doubling. You know, it's amazing. These businesses have worked very hard to transition to online, but they really hadn't caught on in a meaningful way in terms of the online platforms until recently. And I predict that this shift is here to stay. This pandemic has actually forced people to change how they shop. And it's also caused people to rethink their priorities in a healthy way, right? People, they're at home now. They're at home. And what they are realizing is their home is their sanctuary. You know, I figured this out, maybe a little late, but I figured it out. I remember my husband saying that the one piece of advice he really appreciated from his favorite law professor years ago was, whatever you do, whatever line of work you're in, make sure you have a nice place to live, because your home, it matters. It matters to the quality of your life. You know, of course, apparently we didn't take that advice, because my husband and I spent over a decade living in the wonderful New York City. And eventually we moved away a few years ago. And I remember saying, hey, remember what Professor Eli said to you? He was totally right, right? Because where you live really does matter. And having a nice home, taking pride in your home life, these are things that matter to our overall quality of life. I mean, you don't have to have the biggest house, the nicest house or anything, but if you make it feel like yours, right? And you've invested part of yourself in it, then it's home. And people are home right now. They're not traveling. They're not going out to eat much, and they want to be in a nice place. So as such, you are seeing home retailers do incredibly well. I do expect that to continue. I expect to continue because I do think that, you know, while the retailers themselves are very hesitant on earnings guidance, and I get it, because who the heck knows, right? We just don't know what lies ahead right now. But in the scheme of things, I do think Americans have a newfound appreciation for their homes and for their families and for the food that they eat and the lifestyle choices that they make. This really has been a wake-up call for everyone, an opportunity for everyone to take stock of their lives, to take stock of their finances. Right? And in the meantime, it's meant people are taking stock of their homes. The home improvement projects that have been started are fantastic. People are exercising more. They're trying to eat better. You know, the truth is we only go this way once, right? So we might as well make the most of it. And we might as well enjoy every moment of being home and being with family and being with ourselves. I want to say to everyone listening right now, you know what? You're amazing. You are amazing because I know you're committed. I know if you're listening to this show right now, it's because you care as much as I do. So I want to thank you for your incredible support, this incredible outpouring that I have seen. Share the podcast, subscribe to my site, because you know what? I don't want anything cutting me and you off again. It's great to be back with you. It really is. I have so much to say. I care so much. I care about our economy, our markets, our country, and I care about you. You know, there's so much that needs to be done right now to ensure that you have the best opportunity and that your children have the best opportunities ahead. So we need to work together to make sure that we hold our lawmakers accountable and that we have the right policies in place for all of us to move ahead. My goal is to help you understand and synthesize the headlines so that you can be empowered to make the right decisions for your family and for your investments. You know, I'm a big believer in freedom, and this includes financial freedom. We all deserve that, right? And so as much as this is a critical time in American history, and I sure hope that we choose the right path forward, the reality is you need to think about how you position yourself and your finances no matter what, right? Again, I happen to be a little biased in this. I do think capitalism, while not perfect, sure beats the alternative. We need those lower taxes. We need less regulation. We need the ability of government to just get out of the darn way, right? So we can encourage new industries and we can encourage small businesses. We need some safety nets, but we need to also encourage people to be the best they can be. This is what has helped make us the greatest economy in the world. And I don't want to see anybody squander that. But the reality is there's going to be a lot of bumpy things ahead, and we need to be able to work through it. The tenor of the discussion, I can't stand it. I mean, it's really become almost unbearable. Americans have turned on each other in really unspeakable ways. The media has lost all semblance of neutrality, right? And there is, hey, I've seen it, an effort to excommunicate anyone who dares to suggest a different viewpoint. There is no respect. And this is a value that we need to hold dear. So I am really happy to be here. I am happy to be with you on my own. And you know what? Go to the website, trishintel.com, download the podcast. You can find me all over social media, and let's keep this conversation going, okay? I'll talk to you tomorrow.